Today we're going to be doing a tank test, 2 different baits. In our right hand corner we're going to be having a treated bait by a name brand bait company that's been glugging in one of their glug slash feedstim list glugs for about, I'd say, 6 months. On your left hand side of the tank we're going to be having a homemade bait with a homemade feed stimulant, and that's been treated and for way less time, and put both of the baits in the water. Now, for the purposes of this tank test, we're using 20 millimeter baits. The reason for that is because we're not going to try to focus on the bait itself. We're using a much larger bait. That way the koi or the carp in this instance won't be able to actually take the bait, but will hopefully be triggered by the feed stimulants. And that's what we're going to be looking for. They should go to feeding in the rocks and into the gravel around where the bait is, and maybe nipping at the bait itself. That's what we're going to be hoping for. And so what I'll go ahead and do now is go ahead and put both baits in. I'm going to have to turn off the filter and the air circulator. You'll see the air circulator in the top of your right hand corner, and the filter in the top of your left hand corner. We want the filter off so none of the stimulants are getting filtered out of the water, and we want the circulator off that way that the stimulants are concentrated in specifically each corner of the tank. With the circulator on, it would just sweep both of the stimulants out through the tank and through the water column through the entire tank, and we'd have... Alright, I'm back. I've turned off both the water circulator and the filter, and I'm going to be dropping the bait in now. So for right now, the camera's on the tripod away from the tank so you can see the full grip of the tank. As the fish do start to feed, I will take it off the tripod and try to get some close-ups of actually what's going on. We'll see not only what's going on, but we'll also see for about how long it triggers a feed in the area, if at all. So here we go. Okay, so they have been introduced, and right away we have some nibbling in the right hand corner. Obviously the fish saw the bait introduced into the water, but now we see it seems like the fish have traveled over into the left hand, or excuse me, into the right hand corner. That is the homemade bait and the homemade feed stimulant is what you're looking at here. There doesn't seem to be any activity back at the other bait that has went into the water, other than the first initial sight reaction to it. It does look like the fish have been triggered to feed now. Okay, it looks like all the action is going on in this side of the tank, so we'll try to get in here. Okay, so we definitely have all of the koi that are in our tank in one specific spot, compared to both of the baits that went in. Obviously, the first bait that went in from the bait company did get hit on for a few seconds as it was introduced. I believe that was more of a sight reaction as the koi did see it going down. But we have here is not just the koi feeding on or trying to nip on the bait, but actually starting to feed in the gravel as the feed stimulus leaks down into the rock. And as you can see, that's actually set them on quite feeding, and almost immediately. Okay, so now we have some quite active feeding, and we're gonna go ahead and just keep this focused in right here unless the fish seem to move. As you can see, we'll pan across back to where the other bait is, and we have no action. The other bait is in the water right there, right in front of the shark, and but all the action is definitely going on right here on the homemade bait and the homemade feed triggers. So we're going to keep this on here for a while and see exactly how long this is going to feed or trigger the fish to feed, and how aggressively. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in because all the action is just specifically right here. So had my cat kind of scare the fish off there for a second, so I'm going to back up the zoom. You can see they're in the center of the tank now, but still feeding, still searching in the gravel, still picking, still triggered to feed. And we have them entering the area where the other bait went in, but we don't have them giving it any attention. The other bait, as you can see, is right over here, right in front of this little weed structure, but we don't have them really paying any attention to it. Okay, so now that things have kind of settled, they've continued to feed and they're drifting back over to the bait itself. It's getting nibbled on and turned around from the position it landed. Both of the baits were 20 millimeter baits that were cut in half to create better leakage after they had both been treated. Like I said, for this purposes, the bait was put in purposely too big, so it wouldn't be able to be digested, but we only wanted to be able to see the feeding triggers that were created by the bait itself. Okay, so we have some active rooting. Picking up some of the gravel, spitting it back out to suck off some of the things that have leached into over on this side of the tank. As you can see, there definitely seems to be a dividing line, almost center tank, to where the fish go to, and then will graduate back to the homemade bait and the homemade feed stem. So it looks like we're gonna go back in and try to maybe move the bait again, or we've got some of the smaller fish over here now, feeding in the gravel and feeding on top of the bait, the sharks, along with the smaller koi.